Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with the Substack article, actually. It's from Andrew Fox. He is a British former military member of some kind, I don't remember what, but he comments a lot, shooting down the lies about things going on in a certain Middle Eastern area of the world that has some stuff going on right now. He's very much pro-Israel, so obviously I am for a lot of what he has to say because he happens to be reporting correctly. And his article here is called Collapse of the Blood Libels. It's from July 26th, and the subheading here says, every pillar of the genocide accusation against Israel has crumbled. The institutions that built it have suddenly lost their voices. So it's kind of a long one, so sit back and relax. It says, sometimes I think I am not angry enough, but the scale of the problem is almost too huge to be angry at collectively. Towering rage must be split into smaller rages at each of the component parts of the blood libel machine. The fantastical Lancet studies salivating over hundreds of thousands of imaginary dead Gazans. Yeah, and even though Hamas themselves says it's nowhere near 100,000. I think they said 78, and I've seen even 73 recently, so yeah, not 100,000. It says Air Wars, I've never heard of that till right now, pearl-clutching reports, drawing conclusions of civilian targeting in Gaza without a tenth of the evidence needed to draw said conclusions. Amnesty, B'Tselem, and all the other NGOs releasing fraudulent genocide conclusions achieved only by changing the definition and parameters of genocide. So just remember that, people. If you're saying genocide out there and you're citing one of these studies, even including the UN, remember they actually had to change the definition of genocide to get it to fit that, which means it's not actually a genocide. It says the paid media squad of hacks, twisting and distorting and murdering the truth just to get one over on the Jewish state. South Africa, ripping apart the Genocide Convention at Iran's behest, making it harder to punish real genocides in the future. It says the whole sorry mess sickens me, and now the great indictment of Israel is coming apart one revelation at a time. This fact is not being reported by a single damned one of the media outlets that have spent years screeching over the war in Gaza to the exclusion of almost all else. Famine, deliberate attacks on hospitals, the slaughter of journalists and children, I can't talk. I am stuttering a lot. And systematic obstruction of aid. Each allegation was broadcast as settled fact and then used to prove genocidal intent. The same newsrooms and universities that thundered these charges have shown remarkably little interest in the evidence that now destroys each of these allegations. And I should say that as fast as all that went around, it was debunked within like a day after that happened. Every single one of those things was completely debunked. So it says, continuing on, it says, it is incredible. There is no aspect of the genocide allegation that has not collapsed. Start with the famine claim. In August 2025, the IPC used two ways of measuring malnutrition in children: weight compared with height and the size of a child's upper arm. Gaza had no local data showing how those two measures matched up, so the IPC used an estimate from elsewhere in the region. It assumed the weight and height measure would find about twice as many malnourished children as the arm measurement. The first large Gaza survey to use both measures found the reverse. Of 1,335 children surveyed in 2026, 0.5% were identified as acutely malnourished by weight and height, while 1.3% were identified by upper arm measurement. That survey cannot tell us exactly what conditions were like in 2025. The later survey cannot recreate conditions in 2025, but it exposes the rotten foundation beneath a verdict presented to the world as scientific certainty. A key assumption behind the famine declaration had never been tested in Gaza itself. The food figures are equally awkward. Official COGAT-based data, and I don't remember what COGAT was off the top of my head, but I'm sure you can click on there and the link there and check it out. But official COGAT-based data shows that about 1.01 million tons of food entered Gaza between October 7th, 2023 and January 17th, 2025, against an estimated requirement of 825,000 tons, so more was sent in there than expected. From the October 2025 ceasefire to June 7th of 2026, so just about 2 months ago from the time of this recording, and probably exactly 2 months ago from the time you're hearing it, 1.78 million tons entered against a calculated need of roughly 643,000 tons. Of course, food crossing a border does not guarantee it reaches every family. Roads were destroyed, distribution failed, aid was looted, and that's the problem, is that aid was looted, and it was looted by Hamas to purposely make sure people were starving. It says that Israel's 2.5-month block on aid in spring 2025 was a grave error. However, those qualifications cannot rescue the claim of a continuous Israeli policy to starve Gaza. The quantities of food that entered Gaza are simply too large. Yeah, if you're expecting one amount and they're sending far above that amount, but you're trying to say it's a genocide, yeah, sorry, that does not hold up. Says the hospital narrative has also disintegrated. American intelligence independently confirmed that Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad used Al-Shifa for command operations, that's the hospital there is Al-Shifa, weapon storage, and to hold hostages. Hamas accounts now described armed men, including senior officers, sheltering inside the hospital during an Israeli siege. And I hate to break it to people out there, but what do you call a place that terrorists are hiding in, regardless of the type of institution it is? Say it's called a legitimate target. Okay, sucks to hear that, but it's true. But that's also why Hamas hides there, is because they know Israelis will not strike there because they're in it. Okay, so continuing on, it says hospitals remain protected, and Israel still has had to obey the laws of war, but the moral fairy tale of innocent hospitals attacked by the IDF, by the brutal IDF, is dead. There is now endless evidence in the public domain of Hamas using hospitals for military purposes, as they always have. Okay, they use people's homes for the same reason to everything. Kindergarten, schools, doesn't matter. Okay, because they know that Israel will not do the things that they do to regular Hamas people if they were just out in the open. Okay, simple as that. The casualty statistics have fared no better. The claim that 70% of the dead were women and children became a fixture of global coverage. OCHA's July 2026 snapshot, based on Gaza Health Ministry figures for 71,444 identified fatalities, placed those categories at 45.2%. Okay, so we're going with 71,444 is the number, okay? As adult men make up over 50% of the fatalities, from a pre-war adult male percentage of approximately 25% of the population. Not all adult men can be counted as combatants, but a figure repeatedly cited as proof of indiscriminate slaughter is now shown to be false when applied to the overall toll. The hundreds of thousands of dead under the rubble have likewise not materialized. That number is completely implausible, given Gaza's mechanism for reporting the missing and the financial compensation incentives to use it. The supposed massacre of journalists is now unraveling in the same way. A Meyer Amit Center study of 266 people listed as journalists or media workers found that 157, around 60%, were members of or clearly affiliated with terrorist organizations. And I've done, I think, 2 videos on that, and actually one of them showed exactly who the people were that were supposedly journalists, alongside a picture of them wearing like the actual Hamas uniform. So letting you know that that's out there. It says the Committee to Protect Journalists had already removed 8 names after establishing that they were Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad combatants, removed another 12 for other reasons, probably the same reason, and after this exposure came to light, opened a full review. Other OSINT suggest this figure of combatants is even higher. This proves that journalist was often a dangerously incomplete label, and that lurid claims of Israel slaughtering journalists was nothing more than propaganda. An artillery commander does not become a civilian by picking up a camera. Major outlets repeated the raw total for years, and now they are barely reporting its collapse. It's the same thing as all the other stuff. The reason that they say that a journalist was killed and don't report that they're terrorists is to get the reaction anybody out there is having right now that's saying, oh, they're killing journalists. Like, you've been propagandized, okay? They lied to you and you bought it, and you need to figure out a way to make things right. Says the same contamination appears across lists of healthcare workers and children. Militant obituaries have identified numerous medical workers as commanders and operatives, while faction records have revealed teenagers listed only as children despite their documented recruitment into armed groups. Recruited minors remain victims of the adults who use them, but age alone cannot establish civilian status or Israeli intent. Hamas's role in the aid disaster has finally forced its way into the UN's own language. In July 2026, a senior UN official accused armed personnel affiliated with Gaza's de facto authorities, that is, Hamas, of breaking into a food distribution point and a World Food Program warehouse, assaulting drivers and participating in a wider pattern of intimidation, obstruction, and smuggling attempts. Years of sneering at Hamas's aid diversion as Israeli propaganda ended with the UN admitting it. Says academia performed no better. Excuse me again. Says the International Association of Genocide Scholars declared Israel guilty, falsely claiming that the International Court of Justice had found genocide plausible. And here's the kicker here. It says the court's former president had already explained that it made no such finding. Only 28% of the association's members voted. And here's the kicker for this as well. It says membership was open to literally anyone, meaning any of you that are actually listening to this right now could, if you paid, I think it was $125 to them, you could be considered a genocide scholar. So it says the same applies to the fraudulent squad of historians newly reinventing themselves as genocide scholars, in scare quotes, assuming authority their qualifications do not grant, and grandly declaring Gaza a genocide. No mea culpa from these frauds. There are books to be sold. The repercussions are no longer theoretical. Britain recorded 3,700 anti-Semitic incidents in 2025, the second highest annual total in its history. The United States recorded 6,274, with physical assaults at a record. 2 Israeli embassy employees were murdered outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington. Yeah, the dude who did that should be finished off in the same way. I'm using sort of YouTube language there, if you catch my drift, because what he did was just beyond the pale. It says 15 people were slaughtered at a Hanukkah celebration in Sydney, and on and on and on. No newspaper article pulled those triggers, and the hatred long predates Gaza, but the relentless depiction of the Jewish state as a child-killing, famine-making engine of genocide gave old hatred a new moral vocabulary. Jews everywhere were forced to answer for accusations that the evidence can no longer sustain. And I'm never a fan of, like, a person or groups of people answering for the actions of people that are, like, of the same thing. Like this, for example. Like, why does a Jew have to answer for what Israel's doing? Like, what did they have to do with it? Okay, regardless if they support it or not, they had nothing to do with what's happening over there, necessarily, I should say. So it says the genie of anti-Semitism is out of the bottle, and any corrections will not put it back. The academics, NGOs, politicians, and journalists who spread the genocide blood libel without waiting for evidence or fabricating their own now have blood on their hands. Israel should already have been exonerated of the blanket charge that it sought to exterminate Gaza civilians. Individual strikes and alleged crimes are still require investigation, but genocide cannot remain the default verdict after every single factual pillar supporting it has cracked. The record now requires urgent correction, followed by inquiries within the universities and professional bodies that lent the libel their prestige, and that will never happen, but it's a good idea. So some of those responsible should resign. They will not, as I was going to say before I saw that sentence said they will not. So the people who spread these blood libels remain in post, reviewing one another's work and hoping nobody notices the ruins of their reputations. And I doubt even the reputations are going to be ruined. I doubt anyone's really going to be affected by it all that much. I think just life's going to go on, and they're going to still be able to say stupid shit and never get called out for it. So there you go. So what do you think about this? Let me know in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.